I returned to my apartment in Pattaya on a humid Tuesday morning in September 2023, carrying bags of groceries for the dinner. Gift had asked me to cook with her that evening. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs to our unit on Buakau, my knees aching as they always did, but my heart light because I was coming home to someone who loved me. When I pushed open the door, I found nothing but empty rooms and the faint smell of her jasmine perfume lingering in the air. The furniture was gone. The television we'd bought together was gone. The rice cooker, the dishes, the framed photos of us smiling at the beach, all of it gone. On the kitchen counter sat a single note written in her handwriting. "Sorry, Papa Jerry. I need to go now. Please understand. Gift." In that moment, standing alone in that hollow apartment, I realized I'd given her everything, $300,000, my trust, my final years of dignity, and she had taken it all without a backward glance. My name is George Walters, but everyone calls me Jerry. I'm 67 years old, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I spent 40 years managing a truck fleet before I retired. I saved every dollar I could, lived modestly, and built a retirement fund of $420,000. I had a pension that paid me $2,300 a month. I should have been comfortable, I should have been secure, but I made one catastrophic mistake. I believed that a 28-year-old Thai bar girl named Gift actually loved me. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. The winter of 2021 was the hardest of my life. My wife Barbara had died from cancer 18 months earlier, and I was still living in our house in Milwaukee, surrounded by her things, her smell, her absence. Every morning I'd wake up and reach for her across the bed, forgetting for just a second that she was gone. Then reality would crash back in, and I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering what the point of any of it was. Barbara and I had been married for 38 years. We'd met in high school, got married young, and built a quiet, simple life together. We never had children, she couldn't, and we'd made peace with that, but we'd been enough for each other. She worked as a school secretary, I managed trucks. We saved money, went to church on Sundays, and took a vacation to Florida every February. When she got sick, I watched her fade away over 2 brutal years. The chemo, the hospital visits, the hope that kept getting smaller and smaller until there was nothing left but the waiting. She died on a Tuesday morning in April 2020, holding my hand, telling me she loved me, asking me to promise I wouldn't spend the rest of my life alone. I promised her, but after she was gone, I didn't know how to keep that promise. I tried, I really did. I went to the senior center and sat through bingo nights where widows my age talked about their grandchildren and asked polite questions about my wife. I joined a church group, but everyone there had their routines, their friend circles, their lives that didn't have room for a grieving man who didn't know how to talk about anything except trucks and Barbara. Milwaukee felt empty. The winters were brutal. The house was too big, too quiet, too full of memories that hurt. I'd sit in the living room every night, watching television I didn't care about, eating frozen dinners, and feeling the years I had left shrinking away into nothing. My only real friend was a guy named Tom who I'd worked with for 20 years. He'd retired a few years before me and had been traveling around Asia. He called me one night in December and told me about Thailand, about Pattaya specifically. He said it was warm, cheap, and full of life. He said it was a place where guys like us, older, alone, invisible back home, could feel wanted again. "Jerry," he said, "you're dying over there in Milwaukee. You're just waiting to die. Come to Thailand. Just visit. See what it's like. The worst that happens is you get some sun and some good food. The best that happens, you remember what it feels like to be alive." I told him I'd think about it, but the truth was, I'd already decided. Because he was right. I was dying, not physically, but in every way that mattered. I booked a flight for January 2022, 1 month in Thailand. I told myself it was just a vacation, just a break from the cold and the loneliness. But deep down, I think I was hoping for something more. I was hoping to feel something again. Anything. I landed at Suvarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok on a Wednesday afternoon, and the heat hit me like a wall the moment I stepped outside. It was 34 degrees Celsius, humid and thick, and after months of Milwaukee winter, it felt like stepping into another world. Tom had arranged for a taxi to take me straight to Pattaya, about 2 hours south. He'd booked me into a small hotel on Soi Buakau, a street he said was the heart of expat life. The drive to Pattaya was overwhelming. The highways were chaotic, motorcycles weaving between cars, trucks loaded with goods, and billboards in Thai script I couldn't read. Everything felt foreign, loud, and alive in a way Milwaukee had stopped being years ago. When we arrived in Pattaya, the city stunned me. It was early evening, and the streets were packed with people. Neon signs glowed in every direction, advertising bars, massage parlors, restaurants, and hotels. Music poured out of open-air beer bars where Thai women in shorts and bikini tops sat on stools, waving at passing men. Motorcycles roared past, some carrying entire families. Street vendors grilled meat on makeshift carts, filling the air with smoke and the smell of spices I didn't recognize. Tom met me at my hotel, a modest 3-story building with a small lobby and a pool in the courtyard. He looked tanned, relaxed, and younger than I remembered. He grinned when he saw me and clapped me on the shoulder. "Welcome to paradise, Jerry," he said. "You're going to love it here." That first night, Tom took me to Walking Street, Pattaya's most famous stretch of nightlife. It was everything I'd heard about and more. The street was closed to cars, packed with tourists and expats, lined with bars blasting music so loud you could feel it in your chest. Girls stood in the doorways of go-go bars, calling out to men walking past. Lights flashed, drinks flowed. Everyone seemed to be having the time of their lives. Tom led me into a bar called Candy Girls. Inside, women danced on a stage under colored lights, and a bartender poured us beers without asking what we wanted. Tom leaned over and shouted over the music, "This is what I'm talking about, Jerry. You can't tell me this isn't better than sitting alone in Milwaukee." He was right. It was better, but it also felt overwhelming, almost too much. These women were young, beautiful, and confident in a way that made me feel old and out of place. I nursed my beer and watched Tom laugh and flirt with a dancer who couldn't have been older than 25. He seemed so comfortable, so natural. I felt like an imposter. After an hour, we left and walked to a quieter side street called Soi 7. Tom said this area had smaller, friendlier bars where you could actually talk to people. We stopped at a place called Lucky Star. It was just a row of stools facing the street, a small bar with a few bottles of liquor on a shelf, and a television playing a soccer game. 3 women sat behind the bar, chatting in Thai, and one of them smiled at me as we sat down. "Sawadee ka," she said, pressing her palms together in a traditional Thai greeting. I nodded awkwardly, not knowing how to respond. Tom ordered us beers, and we sat there drinking and talking. The bar was relaxed, almost homey. The woman who'd greeted me brought us bowls of peanuts and asked in broken English where we were from. When I said America, she smiled and said, "America good. You first time Pattaya?" I nodded. She laughed, a sweet, genuine sound, and said, "Welcome. You like?" "I think so," I said, and she smiled wider. Her name was Nok, and she wasn't pushy or aggressive like some of the women I'd seen on Walking Street. She was friendly, warm, and made me feel like I was welcome. For the first time in months, I felt myself relax. The beer, the warm night air, the easy conversation, it all felt good. It felt like something I'd been missing for a very long time. We stayed at Lucky Star for hours. Nok kept our beers coming, asked about Milwaukee, told us about her village in Eisen, and laughed at Tom's jokes. When we finally left, I felt lighter than I had in years. Tom looked at me as we walked back to the hotel and said, "See, Jerry, I told you, this place can save you." I didn't say anything, but I think part of me believed him. I spent my first week in Pattaya, exploring. I walked along the beach, ate at cheap Thai restaurants where meals cost less than $3, and sat in air-conditioned coffee shops reading books I'd brought from home. Tom checked in on me every few days, taking me to different bars and introducing me to other expats, men like us, retirees from America, Europe, Australia, all of them living in Pattaya for the same reasons: the weather, the affordability, and the company. But I kept going back to Lucky Star. There was something comforting about it. The staff remembered me, greeted me by name, and treated me like a regular, even though I'd only been there a handful of times. Nok always smiled when she saw me, and we'd talk about simple things: her family, my life back home, the differences between Thailand and America. It was on my 8th night in Pattaya that I met Gift. I'd arrived at Lucky Star around 7 in the evening, just as the sun was setting and the street was starting to fill with people. Nok wasn't there that night, and a different woman was working behind the bar. She was younger than Nok, maybe late 20s, with long black hair tied back in a ponytail and a shy, reserved demeanor that stood out immediately. Most of the bar girls I'd encountered were loud, playful, and aggressive in their flirting. This woman was quiet, almost hesitant, and when she brought me my beer, she didn't try to sit next to me or ask me to buy her a drink. "Thank you," I said, and she nodded, gave a small smile, and went back to wiping down the bar. I watched her for a while. She moved efficiently, didn't laugh loudly like the other girls, and seemed almost uncomfortable in the bar environment. After about 20 minutes, she glanced at me and said in soft, halting English, "You American?" "Yes," I said. "From Milwaukee, Wisconsin." She nodded slowly, clearly not knowing where that was, and said, "I am Gift. You, first time here? At this bar?" "No, I've been here a few times. First time meeting you though." She smiled, a genuine, shy smile, and said, "I am new, only 2 weeks." Something about the way she said it, the vulnerability, the uncertainty, made me want to keep talking to her. I asked her where she was from, and she said Buriram, a province in northeastern Thailand. She said she'd come to Pattaya to work because her family needed money. Her mother was sick, she said, and the hospitals in her village were too expensive. I felt a pang of sympathy. I knew what it was like to watch someone you loved suffer because of medical bills. Barbara's cancer treatment had drained our savings before insurance finally kicked in. I told Gift about Barbara, about losing her, and Gift listened quietly, her eyes soft with understanding. "I am sorry," she said. "Very sad. You good man. I can see." It was such a simple thing to say, but it affected me more than I expected. No one had called me a good man in a long time. No one had looked at me the way she was looking at me, like I mattered. We talked for hours that night. Her English was limited, but we managed. She told me she didn't like working in the bar, that she didn't drink alcohol, and that she only did this job because she had no other choice. She said she wanted to save money, go back to her village, and take care of her mother. She said she prayed every night that things would get better. When I finally left, she walked me to the edge of the bar and said, "You come back, Papa Jerry?" "Papa Jerry?" I asked, surprised. She smiled shyly. "You like father, kind, good. I call you Papa." Something about that nickname broke something open inside me. I nodded and said, "Yeah, I'll come back." And I did. The next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. Over the next 2 weeks, I went to Lucky Star every single evening. Gift was always there, and she always greeted me with that shy smile and called me Papa Jerry. She'd sit with me when the bar wasn't busy, and we'd talk about everything: her village, her family, my life in Milwaukee, my marriage to Barbara. She asked questions that no one else had asked in years. She wanted to know what I liked to eat, what movies I watched, what I missed most about home. She told me she didn't go out with customers. She said most of the men who came to the bar only wanted one thing, and she wasn't that kind of girl. She said she'd been raised Buddhist, that her grandmother taught her to be respectful and modest, and that working in a bar made her feel ashamed. She said she dreamed of leaving, of starting over, of finding a good man who would treat her with respect. I started buying her drinks, lady drinks, they called them, small glasses of juice or soda that cost me 150 baht each, but gave her a commission. I didn't mind. I wanted her to sit with me. I wanted her company. For the first time since Barbara died, I felt like someone actually cared about me. One night, she told me her mother's condition was getting worse. She said the hospital was asking for money up front before they'd continue treatment, and her family didn't have it. She showed me a photo on her phone, a frail-looking woman lying in a hospital bed, tubes in her arms, looking pale and weak. "How much do they need?" I asked. Gift shook her head quickly. "No, Papa, I not ask you money. I worry. I tell you because you listen, you understand. But I wanted to help. I'd spent my whole life working, saving, being responsible. What was the point of having money if I couldn't use it to help someone I cared about?" "How much, Gift?" I asked again. She hesitated, then said quietly, 30,000 baht. "But I cannot ask you. Too much." 30,000 baht was about $900. It wasn't nothing, but it wasn't impossible either. I told her I'd help. She started crying, saying I was too kind, that she didn't deserve it, that she would pay me back. I told her not to worry about it. I told her I wanted to help. I went to an ATM the next day and withdrew the cash. When I gave it to her that evening, she cried again and hugged me tightly. She smelled like jasmine and soap, and I held her for a moment longer than I should have, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, needed. After that, everything changed. Gift started texting me every morning, asking how I slept, wishing me a good day. She'd send me photos of food she was eating, flowers she saw on the street, little glimpses of her life. She started calling me late at night just to talk, her voice soft and sleepy, saying she felt safe when she talked to me. Tom noticed. He pulled me aside one evening and said, "Jerry, be careful. I know Gift seems sweet, but these girls are professionals. They know how to make you feel special. Don't get in too deep." I told him he was wrong. Gift wasn't like the others. She was different. She didn't ask me for money except that one time for her mother, and even then she'd been reluctant. She wasn't working me. She genuinely cared about me. Tom didn't push it, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He'd been in Thailand long enough to know how these things went, but I convinced myself he was just jaded, cynical. He didn't understand what Gift and I had. By the end of my first month in Pattaya, I'd extended my stay. I wasn't ready to go back to Milwaukee. I wasn't ready to leave Gift. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment on Soi Buakaw in March 2022. It was on the third floor of an older building, with a balcony that overlooked the street, a small kitchen, and a bedroom with a fan and an air conditioner that rattled when it ran. The rent was 9,000 baht a month, less than $300. It felt surreal to have a place of my own in a foreign country, but it also felt right. For the first time since Barbara died, I felt like I was building something again. Gift started spending more and more time at the apartment. She'd come over after her shifts at the bar, sometimes staying the night, sometimes just sitting with me on the balcony while I drank a beer and she sipped water. She started cooking for me simple Thai dishes like fried rice, pad krapao, and tom yum soup. She said she wanted to take care of me, that I'd been alone too long. One evening, she told me she wanted to quit the bar. She said she hated it, that it made her feel dirty, and that she only stayed because she needed the money. She said if she had a choice, she'd leave tomorrow. "So leave," I said. "I'll help you." She looked at me with surprise. "Papa, you already helped me so much. I cannot ask more." "You're not asking," I said. "I'm offering. How much do you make at the bar?" She hesitated, then said, "Maybe 12,000, 15,000 baht 1 month. Depend on customer." 15,000 baht was about $450. I could afford that easily. My pension alone was $2,300 a month, and I hadn't touched my savings. I told her I'd give her 15,000 baht every month if she quit the bar and stayed with me. She cried. She said I was the best man she'd ever met, that she didn't deserve me, that she'd never forget my kindness. She moved in 2 days later. Life with Gift felt like a dream. She was attentive, affectionate, and made me feel like I mattered. She'd wake up early and make me coffee. She'd do my laundry, clean the apartment, and greet me with a smile when I came back from my daily walks. She'd sit with me while I read or watch television, her head resting on my shoulder, her hand in mine. We started going out together, walking along the beach, eating at small Thai restaurants, visiting temples. She introduced me to her friends, other Thai women who worked in bars or restaurants, and they all seemed to like me, calling me Papa Jerry just like she did. I felt like part of a community, like I belonged. Tom remained skeptical. He'd see us together and shake his head, muttering warnings I chose not to hear. Other expats I'd met would tell me stories about men who'd been scammed, who'd lost everything to bar girls who played the long game. But I didn't listen. I was happy. Gift made me happy. That was all that mattered. One night, about 3 months after she moved in, Gift told me about her dream. She said she'd always wanted to open a small restaurant, something simple where she could cook Thai food for tourists and locals. She said it was something she'd thought about since she was a girl, watching her mother cook in their village kitchen. "I think you'd be great at that," I said. She smiled sadly. "Just dream, Papa. Too expensive. I never have money for that." "How much would it cost?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe 1 million, 1,500,000 baht. For rent, for kitchen, for everything." 1.5 million baht was about $45,000. It was a lot of money, but it wasn't impossible. I had $420,000 in savings. I could afford to invest in a restaurant if it meant securing our future, giving Gift the life she dreamed of, and building something together. I didn't tell her that night, but the idea started growing in my mind. What if we did this together? What if I helped her open a restaurant, and we ran it as partners? It could be our project, our life, our future. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. In June 2022, I told Gift I wanted to help her open the restaurant. She was sitting on the balcony, folding laundry, when I brought it up. She looked at me with wide eyes, disbelief written across her face. "Papa, you serious?" "I'm serious," I said. "I want to do this with you. We'll find a location, set everything up, and run it together. It'll be our business." She started crying, the way she always did when I did something kind for her. She hugged me tightly and said, "You too good. I love you, Papa. I love you so much." It was the first time she'd said she loved me. I held her and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. We started looking for locations the next week. Gift knew Pattaya well, and she took me to different areas, pointing out spaces that were available for rent. We looked at places on Soi Buakaw, near Walking Street, and on quieter side streets. Gift said the location needed to be central enough to attract tourists, but not so expensive that the rent would eat into our profits. We found a place on Soi 8, a small storefront with a kitchen in the back, space for about 10 tables, and a rent of 35,000 baht a month. Gift loved it immediately. She said it was perfect, that she could already picture what it would look like, how she'd decorate it, what dishes she'd serve. The landlord wanted 6 months' rent, upfront, 210,000 baht, about $6,300. Gift said we'd also need money for kitchen equipment, furniture, permits, and initial supplies. She estimated the total cost would be around 1,200,000 baht, about $36,000. It was more than I'd anticipated, but I wanted to do it right. I didn't want to cut corners and risk the business failing. I transferred $36,000 from my savings account in Milwaukee to my Thai bank account. It took a few days to clear, and during that time, Gift was giddy with excitement, talking nonstop about the restaurant, about the future, about how we'd make it work. When the money cleared, I gave it to Gift. She needed to handle the payments, she said, because everything in Thailand had to be in a Thai person's name. Foreigners couldn't own businesses outright. She said she'd set up a company in her name, but I'd be the partner, the investor, the one who made it all possible. I trusted her completely. Over the next month, Gift said she was handling everything, paying the landlord, buying equipment, securing permits. She'd come home exhausted every evening, telling me about her day, about the contractors she'd hired, about the progress being made. She showed me photos of the space, of kitchen equipment being delivered, of tables and chairs being set up. I didn't go to the location often. My knees hurt, and the heat exhausted me. I trusted Gift to handle it. She was capable, organized, and determined. She'd text me updates throughout the day, and I'd feel proud, knowing we were building something together. But then the requests for more money started. First, she said the kitchen equipment was more expensive than she'd thought. She needed another 50,000 baht, about $1,500. I gave it to her. Then she said the permits required additional fees, bribes to local officials to speed things along. Another 80,000 baht, about $2,400. I gave it to her. Then she said the contractors had found problems with the plumbing and electrical wiring. Fixing it would cost another 120,000 baht, about $3,600. I hesitated that time, asking if we could see the space together, but she said the contractors were working, and it was a mess, and it would be better to wait until it was finished. I gave her the money. By August, I'd transferred a total of $90,000 into her account. My savings had dropped from $420,000 to $330,000. I was starting to feel uneasy, but Gift reassured me. She said the restaurant was almost ready, that we'd open in September, and that all the investment would be worth it. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. In late August, Gift told me she needed to go back to her village for a week. Her mother's condition had worsened, she said, and she needed to be there. I offered to go with her, but she said it was better if I stayed in Pattaya. Her village was remote, uncomfortable, and she didn't want me to be burdened by it. I didn't argue. I kissed her goodbye and watched her leave, feeling a strange sense of unease I couldn't quite explain. While she was gone, I decided to visit the restaurant. I wanted to see the progress for myself, to feel connected to the project we were building together. I took a motorbike taxi to Swy 8 and found the address Gift had given me. The storefront was empty. The windows were covered with old newspapers, and a faded "For Rent" sign hung in the window. I stood there for a long time, staring at it, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried the door. It was locked. I peered through the gaps in the newspaper covering the windows. The space was completely empty. No kitchen equipment, no tables, no chairs, nothing. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and called Gift, but she didn't answer. I called again and again. No answer. I went back to the apartment and sat on the balcony, staring at my phone, waiting for her to call back. Hours passed. The sun set. The street below filled with the usual noise of Pattaya nightlife music, laughter, motorbikes, but all I could hear was the silence from my phone. She finally called me the next morning. Her voice was bright, cheerful, asking how I was, telling me about her mother, about the village. I interrupted her. "Gift, I went to the restaurant yesterday." There was a pause. Then she said, "Why you go, Papa? I tell you wait." "Because I wanted to see it. But there's nothing there, Gift. The place is empty. It's still for rent." Another pause, longer this time. Then she said, her voice shaking, "Papa, I can explain. The landlord, he lie to me. He take money and not give me the space. I try to fix, but he very bad man. I so sorry, Papa. I try to get money back." "You gave the landlord $90,000? Not all to him," she said quickly. "Some to contractor, some to permit, some to equipment. But landlord, he take big part. I so sorry. I fix this. I promise." I didn't know what to believe. I wanted to believe her, but something felt wrong. I told her to come back to Pattaya immediately. She said she'd leave the next day, but she didn't come back the next day, or the day after that. She kept making excuses. Her mother needed her. The bus was full. She'd come soon. I called her constantly, and she'd answer sometimes, her voice sweet and apologetic, but she never came back. 2 weeks later, I called the number she'd been using, and it was disconnected. I didn't know what to do. I felt paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I started asking around, talking to other expats, trying to figure out what had happened. One of them, an Australian man named Rob, who'd been in Pattaya for 10 years, listened to my story and shook his head. "Mate, you got scammed," he said. "Classic long con. She played you from the start. The sick mother, the restaurant dream, all of it. I've seen it 100 times. I didn't want to believe him, but deep down, I knew he was right." Rob helped me file a report with the local police. We went to the station on Swan 9, and I explained everything to an officer who listened with a bored expression. He asked if I had any contracts, any proof that the money was stolen. I didn't. I'd given Gift the money willingly. She'd promised to invest it in our business, but I had nothing in writing. The officer said there was nothing they could do. In Thailand, he explained, if you give someone money as a gift or for a relationship, it's not considered theft. I could try to sue her in civil court, but without documentation, I had no case. I left the police station feeling hollowed out, broken. $90,000 gone. Just gone. I went back to the apartment and sat on the balcony, staring at the street below, trying to process what had happened. Gift had taken everything, not just my money, but my trust, my hope, my belief that I could build a life with someone again. I started drinking, heavily. I'd buy bottles of cheap Thai whiskey and sit on the balcony every night, drinking until I couldn't think anymore. Tom tried to check on me, but I pushed him away. I didn't want to hear. "I told you so." I didn't want pity. One night, a bar girl from a nearby bar saw me on the balcony and came up to talk. Her name was Lek, and she'd known Gift. She sat down and, after a few drinks, told me the truth I'd been avoiding. Gift had never quit working. She'd been seeing multiple men the entire time she was with me, telling each of them the same story, the sick mother, the dream of a better life, the need for financial help. She'd been texting and calling other men while lying next to me at night. The restaurant had never been real. She'd pocketed every dollar I'd given her and split it with a Thai boyfriend she'd been with for years. Lek showed me Gift's Facebook page. There she was, smiling in photos with a young Thai man, sitting on a new motorbike, wearing expensive clothes, living a life funded by men like me. I felt something break inside me that night. Not just my heart, but something deeper, my sense of self, my belief that I was someone worth loving, worth being honest with. It's been over a year since Gift disappeared. I'm still in Pattaya, but not by choice. I can't afford to leave. My savings are down to $40,000, and my pension barely covers rent for the small room I now live in above a bar on Swai 7. I don't have the money to fly back to Milwaukee, and even if I did, I'm not sure what I'd go back to. The house is gone. I sold it before I left. I have no family, no friends left there. I spend my days walking around Pattaya, handing out flyers for an expat support group that helps victims of scams. The group is run by volunteers, men who've been through what I've been through, who understand what it's like to lose everything to someone you loved. Some days, I see Gift, or at least, I think I do. I'll be walking down Soi Buakaw or near Walking Street, and I'll see a woman with long black hair, and my heart will stop. But it's never her. She's gone, disappeared into the millions of people in Thailand, living her life, spending my money, moving on to the next victim. I don't blame Thailand. Thailand didn't do this to me. Gift did, but I also know I let it happen. I ignored every warning sign, every red flag, because I was lonely, desperate to feel wanted again. I traded my security, my retirement, my future for the illusion of love. Tom still checks on me. He brings me food sometimes, makes sure I'm okay, though I know he feels guilty for introducing me to this place. I tell him it's not his fault. I made my own choices. At night, I sit in my small room, listening to the noise from the bar below, and I think about Barbara. She told me not to spend the rest of my life alone, but I think she'd be heartbroken to see what trying to follow her advice cost me. I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to feel loved. Instead, I lost everything that mattered. If you're watching this and thinking about moving to Thailand, about meeting someone in a bar, about investing in a business with someone you barely know, please, learn from my mistake. Don't let loneliness make you blind. Don't let the illusion of love cost you everything, because once it's gone, you can't get it back, and the person who took it from you won't lose a single night of sleep over it. My name is George Jerry Walters, and this is my story, a romance from hell that cost me my retirement, my dignity, and my future. If this story impacted you, please consider subscribing to this channel. These stories need to be told, and your support helps me continue documenting the reality behind the romance scams that destroy lives every day. Thank you for watching, and please be careful out there.